Part U. It's important to stress at this stage that not everything is about filth and grime. Sometimes it's just about stuff. Too much stuff. Or sometimes, as we saw in the case of Butch, too little. Or the wrong stuff. Or the right stuff but put together in a way that's like a tiny little muffled flare from our psyche into the universal web, hoping to be seen. And this is where, SLOB, you start seeing again how you and Creator, or Buddha, or Pixie Boo Boo, or as I like to call him, Gregg Cihangir Masuak, are the same thing, kind of like best pals slipping notes to one another back and forth in the classroom, adding to them and giggling until neither you, me, he, she, it knows any longer who wrote what first and to whom. It's all signs and signals, reminders and taps on the shoulder, this duck and dive between objects, identity, and spirit. And it doesn't matter a damn what angle you look at it from, which makes it completely blameless and captivating and fun. Make no mistake, there's no end to this shit. You're always passing those notes between you, ourselves, you delightful little spiritual scallywags. And with that in mind, you can relax and enjoy the process, 'cause sure as the grease gets scraped out of the garbage disposal, there'll be another fresh new piece of cack somewhere else, and that's just frickin' dandy. One example of how you talk to yourself, Creator talks to you as you both talk to each other, yada yada, can be witnessed in the kind of thing you'd never normally pick up on, except now you got this book and you're reading it and you're not seeing your life through the eyes of a slob anymore, but through the lens of a newly gifted spiritual slob, is case in point Deniz, a lovely Turkish friend of mine with the deepest brown eyes and the kind of complexion you'd imagine some mermaid might have. Pale and flawless, like tiny little fish have been nibbling and exfoliating her constantly, like those little vats of fish you see in Balinese foot spas, which is totally appropriate as her name means the sea. I'm always envious when someone's name means something, anything, and especially when it means something cool, like the guy I mentioned earlier who designed and illustrated the book, Emir, whose name means prince and power, or some shit like that. Well, my name, Gregg, just means Gregg, or perhaps the sound you make when you're choking on your tongue. Which is why I added the name Cihangir, because I fucking love it, and it means world conqueror. And that's where I'm at, babies. Though I see myself more as a benevolent conqueror of hearts and minds and souls and stuff, not the kind of stupid conqueror that cuts off people's heads and moronic shit like that. Anyhow, mermaid-esque Deniz's love life has been in the shitter for so long she can't even remember the last time she had need for a personal lubricant. And no matter what you say, that shit's important, because your energy centers are like big old chain stores in a giant shopping mall, and when one shuts down, it leaves the mall feeling kinda tatty. And once that mall starts feeling tatty, there's less people shopping around, and before you know it, you got a fine but completely abandoned mall with a few bubblegum machines and a gymboree but little else. And that energy kinda sucks. You gotta keep all your chain stores buzzing. All of them. But then again, that's probably just my Scorpio rising talking, and us Scorpionics are pretty much just a bunch of boners with heads like periscopes searching out the next available orifice. Back to Deniz. Now vehemently single. And let me now quickly scramble to the podium, tap the mic, and announce before you shout at me, not all of us have to be in a relationship. I get it. I get it. I get it. However, in this case, vehement singledom was, even though she protested was her conscious choice, in fact the result of a batch of uber shitty affairs with some extremely poorly chosen dudes. Or did the cosmos choose them for a rather yucky little learning curve? I don't know. Which, rather than leaving her spinning in the delicious dizzy dance that love can bring, had left her punch-drunk noggin whirling like an old rattly kid's toy, all jittery and smashing into the walls and wearing her down till she just didn't want to fucking spin anymore. Apart from the fact that she's my pal, I couldn't help but feel for sweet fuck you love Deniz, because you could just sense the longing in her soul, kind of like the sickly, sour, poopy smell of a pulp mill when the wind shifts from north to east and you're standing in the backyard with your steak sizzling on the barbecue and you're Nostrils suddenly get all confused and stacked up with an uncomfortable mixed bag of disparate olfactory cross-references for a moment. You couldn't help but notice how little things just spilled out from her being into her sweet little environment. Little things that to us spiritual slobs now, after traveling this journey as we have, notice you're no longer stomping and stamping and angrily cracking open that beer and turning the TV set on. Recognize as energy spurts seeding themselves into our reality so that we can recognize ourselves in them. In the homey environment that Dennis had chosen to manifest, almost all the photographs she had on the mantelpiece were single shots of her. No shit, Sherlock, you sneer. Oops, there's that attitude again. Not exactly earth-shattering news when you're several years down the line from your last shag and determinedly partnerless. But what was telling was that deliciously tiny little look at me item that you spiritual slobs are coming to recognize more and more within your own environments. Isolated on one shelf was a framed photograph of herself, alone, but like really alone, which was weird because she was seated, a distant figure, smiling sweetly like a kid, posing in front of some toy she wanted but hadn't the nerve to ask for, in front of the frickin' Taj Mahal. No other person in sight. Now for those of you in the know, and now for those of you who aren't, the Taj Mahal is perhaps one of the world's most significant homages to love from an emperor to his dead wife. Its present literally reeks of love, of yearning, made even more poignant by the fact that it was an apparently perfect and now, by virtue of wifey's demise, endless love. Just like that film with Brooke Shields and some guy named Martin Hewitt who apparently now sells home inspection merchandise. Directly behind that strangely shy and oh so very lonely photograph, that very personal tribute to lonesome individuality against a backdrop of undying love, and shoved into the shadows of the shelf, was a personal diary with a three-dimensional heart on its cover, and nothing but blank pages inside it. Despite Dennis's protestations of fidelity to herself and herself alone, always the one to almost angrily slam you if you suggested that there might be someone out there for her, whether she wanted them or not, Dennis, or Taj Mahal as Dennis, positioned just for herself a clue to the energetic reality she really lived in, going so far as to place a book within easy reach of her own self, ripe and ready for her vision of love to be rewritten according to her own desires. Not the scary twirling goo-goo go-round of the past, but a Mahalian temple of commitment and truth. Such silent yoo-hoos from our souls are not haphazard pieces of bric-a-brac stacked randomly or accidentally, but the karaoke bar of the universe screaming for us to turn up the volume, grab the mic, and belt out our favorite song, which of course we now are.